This industry, this room, your field force understands reputation perhaps more than any other industry in the world. You know the power of trust and integrity and doing what we said we're going to do.
Welcome to a special bonus episode of the Direct Approach podcast. Today, we're featuring one of the most talked about presentations from DSU Fall 2025. New York Times bestselling author and Brand Builders Group co-founder Rory Vaden on the power of personal branding. In this episode, Rory shares groundbreaking research revealing why 63% of Americans are more likely to buy from someone with an established personal brand. He unpacks why most personal brands fail, the power of narrow focus, and why the best personal brands are service-centered, not self-centered. This episode is a preview of the wealth of video content available in the DSN library, an exclusive resource for DSN supporter companies. One of many benefits designed to help keep you and your teams engaged, informed, and one step ahead. If you work at a supporter company, simply log in using your unique company code to access over 2,000 curated assets, including podcasts, webinars, and past DSN event replays. If you're interested in becoming a DSN supporter, you can contact us at support@directsellingnews.com. Now let's hear from Rory Vaden on the importance of personal branding.
There's three things that I want to share with you. So my company, Brand Builders Group, works with mission-driven messengers. And we originally started out helping authors and speakers to become more wealthy and well-known. You got to see some of my clients, some of my private clients that I've worked with. And we're going to talk about three things now because what has happened over the last several years, we would have never predicted. We have been thrown violently into all sorts of other industries because of how personal branding is expanding to lots of other service-based and product-based businesses, different channels, different industries. And I think that's part of why Stuart invited me today. So we're gonna look at three things. When does building a personal brand matter according to data? Why do most personal brands fail? And how personal brands can separate themselves from the crowd. So I want to start with some data. Our team invested over $100,000 in a national research study called the Trends in Personal Branding National Research Study. So this was a PhD-led, academically sound. We followed traditional academic rigor that was weighted to the United States general population. So it is a US study. And I'm going to share some of that data with you. But before I get to the data, I want to let you know about something that happened a few Halloweens ago with my son, Jasper. Because some of what I'm going to tell you today, you might not like. You might not be happy about what I'm sharing. And I had this conversation with my son, Jasper, a few years ago around this time because it was Halloween. And Jasper loves fire trucks. And he really wanted to dress up as a fireman. The problem was that his mother and we found the cutest panda bear costume. And so I was talking to him, I'm like, buddy, what do you think about going as a panda bear for Halloween? And he was like, no, daddy, fire trucks. And I was like, well, bud, I think it would be so cute if you dressed up as this panda bear. The pictures would be amazing. Mom found this awesome costume. And he says, no, daddy, fire trucks. I'm fireman. And I had to teach him that sometimes in life, you're gonna have to do things that you don't like doing. And he wasn't totally ecstatic about it at first. This is a picture of what happened, but we got past it. So I just wanna share some data with you that according to Americans of going, how much does personal branding matter and where and when does it matter? Well, 63% of Americans said that they are more likely to buy from someone who has an established personal brand. Not a company brand, not a product brand. 63% say I'm more likely to buy from you if I recognize your personality, your face. But it wasn't just that they buy from personal brands. They're more likely to recommend them. They're more likely to do business for them. 50% of Americans said they're more likely to work for the person. That sounds a whole lot like recruiting, right? And sponsoring and welcoming people into the network. Now, one thing that I also thought was entertaining, 29% of Americans say they are more likely to date someone just because they have an established personal brand. You used to have to be charming and smart and all of those things. Now you just need a Canva Pro account, and that's what matters on the dating scene. So as I mentioned, Brand Builders Group originally started helping aspiring speakers and authors and people like that. And then everything started to shift. And we started getting calls from all of these other industries. And so we started studying these industries, and we asked Americans about which industries does it matter most to them that their provider has a personal brand, not a corporate brand, not a corporate logo, but a personal brand. And the number one profession on the list was their doctor. 61% of Americans said they want their doctor to have a personal brand. 59% said their employer, their lawyer, their financial advisor, their banker, and it goes down the list. And this was shocking to us because at first it didn't make sense. These were not traditional industries where the personal brand mattered. These were like more formal industries with like education and certifications. And then it dawned on us that it was a very simple commonality. The higher the requirement for trust, the more important having an established personal brand becomes. This is true for solopreneurs, individual distributors, but also for corporations and large organizations. Now, we don't work with companies. Brand Builders Group doesn't do anything with branding for companies, but we do work with a lot of executives. And we started working with a lot of individual CEOs and CMOs and founders and COOs to help them build a personal brand, because what we're finding is that people follow the person more than they follow the company. In fact, 74% of Americans said they are more likely to trust someone just because they have an established personal brand. Now, I know sometimes in certain industries, and maybe in this space, it's a little bit scary, right? Because it feels in many ways disruptive, and in some ways it is disruptive to maybe some of the ways that we've always done things. And when we hear personal branding, we might think of like, oh, well, that means everyone's gonna like build our customer base and they're gonna take them off, or they're gonna recruit our field force and they're gonna take them off. Or we think of like, oh, that just means we have to all be on social media or TikTok, or all of my people are gonna start a podcast or a YouTube channel, or everyone in my organization is suddenly gonna wanna write a book and be a speaker. And really personal branding, what we found in this study is that personal branding is not about colors and logos and fonts. It's not about social media. It's not about YouTubes and podcasts. What personal branding ultimately is something old that is being reinvented. Ultimately, personal branding is simply the digitization of reputation. The digitization of reputation. And what should be empowering about that for all of you is this industry, this room, your field force understands reputation perhaps more than any other industry in the world. You know the power of trust and integrity and doing what we said we're gonna do. And so we should succeed at this. We should be innovating. We should be inventing this space. So let's talk about now how or why most personal brands fail. And here's what I want everybody to do really quick. We're just gonna do a simple exercise. Now don't worry, I'm not gonna make you touch anybody or do anything weird. But I do need you all to stand up just for a second, okay? So everybody just stand up 1 quick second. This is very easy. You don't have to yell out or do anything like that. All I want you to do is everybody turn and face the person to your left. Look at the person to your left. Okay, great, nicely done. Now turn back and face the person to your right. Look at the person on your right. Okay, brilliant. Now this is the tricky part, and here's where the choice comes in. What I need you to do is I need you to think very hard, and then I want you to turn back and face the better looking of the two. Once you made up your mind, you can sit back down. I love that. I love that. You can sit back down. I love that because it's so incredibly awkward, right? Like some of you are sitting next to like someone you work with, so you feel kind of obligated, but you like don't want to offend, you don't want to offend like a stranger. And then like half of you were looking at me. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it demonstrates an important part of building a personal brand, at least our strategy, that there's a big difference between simple and easy, right? Left and right is a simple choice. But depending on the context, when I change the context, it becomes difficult. What I'm about to share with you is, I'm not kidding, the single greatest secret that we have discovered in helping build some of the biggest personal brands in the world today. And when you see it, you're gonna be like, it can't be that simple. I promise it's this simple. But just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy to implement. And I wanna introduce it to you using a framework that we call Sheahan's Wall. And this visual represents the world of personal branding and any different industry. And in any industry or geography, there's two groups of people. There are those who are unknown. They are struggling with obscurity. Maybe they're new or they're not recognizable. And then on the other side of the wall are the people who are well-known. They have notoriety. They're recognizable. They're trusted. People know who they are. And what most of us do is we're trying to move from being unknown to well-known. And what many of us do is, when we're in this unknown space, we look at the people who are well-known and we try to emulate what they do, right? And so we look at Tony Robbins and we say, oh my gosh, well, or Gary Vaynerchuk. And we go, well, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about music and sports and entertainment and wine and social media and cryptocurrency and AI and goals. And so we go, well, I'm multi-passionate, so I'm gonna talk about lots of topics. And then we are all talking to lots of different audiences. And so we're like not quite sure what to say because, we go, who's following or who's listening to me? It's like, okay, well, I've got like my employees and my colleagues, but then like grandma is paying attention. And then like my arch nemesis from high school is there who's like leaving weird comments. But I'm also trying to like attract new recruits into our organization. Or maybe if it's someone who's in the field, it's like they're trying to sell, but they also have like their kids' parents. And so we've got lots of audiences that we're trying to sort of cater to. And then there's all these different profiles, right? And every time you hear a social media expert, they're like, you gotta be on YouTube because it's like the #2 search engine and podcasting is exploding. But like TikTok is where all the organic growth is. But if you wanna build trust, you really gotta be in stories. But short form content, man, if you can capture short form content, like you can go viral on Instagram. And so we're trying to keep up with Snapchat and Twitter X and like all of these things. And then there are new business models. And we look at personal brands like Tony Robbins and we go, well, this guy makes money selling courses. And every time you and your field force scroll online, they're assaulted with some new way of making money. It's like, you can launch a course, you can do a membership site, you can use drop shipping, like you can host Airbnb, like you can do Airbnbs, you can fix and flip homes, you can do destination retreats, you can launch a high-end coaching program, become an author, become a keynote speaker. And there's all of these different business models and they're being taught to like monetize in all these different ways. And here's what happens is everybody who's trying to do that bounces off the wall. And the reason they bounce off of the wall is because of our simple premise that we have found to be true time and time again is so straightforward that when you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. Period. When you have diluted results, or diluted focus, when you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. And we're chasing too many revenue streams and too many markets with too many messages and too many different products and on too many platforms, and our field is talking about too many different topics. And it's hard, right? And people want to know why, Rory, why are you behind on email? You want to know why I'm behind on email? Because this picture is my real life. This is what's going on in my office. When I am trying to work, this is what I'm dealing with because I have young kids. And any of you who have ever experienced distraction, you know that's true. It's very hard to create momentum when you're distracted. And the single best piece of personal branding advice that I've ever heard in my entire life came from a gentleman named Larry Winget. I wish this was a Rory Vaden quote. It's not. This came from one of my mentors early in my career, but the moment I heard Larry say this, I knew he was right. I knew it was true. And we banked my entire career in personal brand on it. And then we banked the career of some of our biggest private clients. And that has worked again and again. And now Brand Builders Group has become a community where we're helping people understand the simple truth, which says the goal of a great personal brand is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. And so what we developed was a process where we take individuals through this process to help them figure out what is their uniqueness. Because Larry said this is what you should do, but he never taught anyone how to do it. And we figured out how we can help people figure out one problem do they solve in one word. What one audience should they be talking to? What one solution or message should they offer? And what one revenue stream matters above all others for that person? And if you think about a wall, if I was trying to knock down a wall and I was hitting with a sledgehammer on all different spots on that wall, nothing would happen to that wall. But the way that we started doing this is we realized that if you take a sledgehammer and you hit the same spot over and over and over and over, eventually the paint would chip. And then it would crack, and then there would be a divot, and then there would be a carve out, and sooner or later there would be a hole that if you hit it again and again and again, eventually you punch through and you pull back and the entire wall comes crashing down. And this is the strategy that we have used to help some of the people that we were working with years ago become some of the biggest personal brands in the world. I'll share one example. So this is Lewis Howes. Lewis Howes, I met when my first book was called Take the Stairs came out. It hit the New York Times bestseller list in like 2012. And I was on Lewis's show and he had about 8 million downloads. And then we met at that time. And then a few years went by and like 5 years later, he calls me and he said, my podcast has grown. I've got 30 million downloads, but I'm struggling to like get clarity on my direction. I'm pulled in lots of directions. We're overstaffed. We're spread thin. We're making revenue, but we're not keeping much profit. And he proudly showed me that he had 17 revenue streams. And I said, Lewis, 17 revenue streams is ridiculous. Like you only have 9 employees. Like that's more than 1 revenue stream per employee. But he said, but this is what you hear all the time is that you should have multiple streams of income. And I said, Lewis, no. We never taught Lewis anything about podcasting. But what I said is, what would happen if you shut everything else down and went all in on this podcasting thing you're doing? Doesn't even make you much money, but it's where all the natural momentum is. It's what everyone talks about when they talk about you. What if you let everything else go and you just went all in? And to his credit, he did that. He shut down 14 revenue streams. One was multi-7 figures that he walked away from overnight. And then what happened is he went from 30 million downloads that took him 8 years to 500 million downloads in the next 2 years, and then 1 billion downloads today. His podcast is called The School of Greatness. He now has 10 million followers. He's interviewing celebrities. He's hit the New York Times 3 times, gets $150,000 for a speech. It's not Lewis's results that matter to you, it's the strategy. The strategy is the same. Diluted focus, diluted results. But if we find our uniqueness and we double down on the thing that only we can do again and again and again, it's not that we can't expand, it's that what the celebrities do is they expand after they break through the wall. Nobody who got famous for lots of stuff. They all got famous for one thing. Here's another thing. So over the years, I now have 6 private clients of mine who are billionaires, which blows my mind, right? I grew up by a single mom. I was born in a trailer park. I have 6 clients who are billionaires that I'm coaching. One of the things that I've learned from billionaires, nobody who got rich from multiple different things. The way you get rich is from having one amazing stream of income. You make all your money from one thing, and then later, after you break through the wall, you diversify into other things. And this brings me to the big lie that much of your field probably believes. And perhaps you believe it. And the big lie is that everywhere we go, people are telling us the key to wealth is multiple streams of income. And that, in my experience and our research, is not true. You don't get rich from having multiple streams of janky income. You get rich from having one stream of amazing income. You do one thing really, really well. You go all in on that one thing. And then later, once you break through the wall, sure, you can expand. But the lie that the field is believing is that they have to create all these streams of income. It's killing them. But even the people that they look up to, they're not doing this. They're doing what we're talking about. So the message they need to understand is that the fastest path to cash is to focus on what's current. The fastest path to cash is to focus on what's current. They can talk about different things, but they should only focus on selling one thing. They should only focus ideally on recruiting for one thing. Now, they could sell a few things, but I would suggest that they could talk about lots of topics, but they should primarily have one business model. And if I were in front of your field force, I would be the first to tell them it should be one thing. You can't recruit and lead a great organization of 20 different companies. You can't know all the product knowledge about 20 different companies. We should go all in on one thing. Now, we can present externally on lots of topics, but we want to try to monetize in one way. So we believe that the fastest path to cash for any personal brand is to drive traffic to your current business, not to spin up and create all of these new things. And that's what we found to be true. Now, let's talk about really quickly how to separate yourself from the crowd. Again, I want to come back to data here. And this is true for all of you as executives. You might think that people want to know about the company and the corporate brand. Well, 2/3 of Americans said they would, this is 67% of people, said they would be more likely to buy products and services from companies where they knew the personal values of the founders, when they know who the founder is and what the founder believes. And that's 67% in total. If you look at older millennials, ages 35 to 44, 80% of them said this is true. So that stat's gonna trend higher over the next couple years. People want to know you. They want to know who you are. They want to know what you believe. They want to know why you do what you do. They want to know why you're in this business. They want to know why you created the products. They want to know that you care about your employees and your customers. They don't want a faceless brand. Like, people follow Richard Branson, they don't follow Virgin. People follow Elon Musk, they don't follow Tesla. People follow the athlete, not the sports team. And that's what's happening. Now, it is true that if you suck in real life, you will suck online. Okay, so I can't help you with that part. But assuming that you care about people and you have something to share, that is what I would encourage you to do. So the last thing I want to leave you with, though, really quick, is what is the number one secret to building a breakthrough personal brand? If I had to take all 14 courses in our curriculum and boil it down to help you find your uniqueness, people always ask me, okay, is there a shortcut? Is there like a fast path to this? And there is. And we didn't know this when we started the company, but we do know it now. And here's what we realized, that for each and every one of you, and for every person in your organization, and for all your entire field force, for all of us, you are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. And again, no industry knows this better than the direct selling industry. But sometimes we're afraid of personal brands, or we think, oh, everyone's just going to try to go out and be famous. But the truth is, a great personal brand isn't self-centered. A great personal brand is service-centered. The best personal brands in the world know that when you are selling is good, but when you're selling, there are wins and losses. But when you are serving, there are only wins. And so we want our field force to go out and serve the world. We want them to go be ambassadors of positivity and health and nutrition and hope and all the things that your products do. And what we have to ask ourselves is, what challenge have you conquered? What setback have you survived? What obstacle have you overcome? And what makes you mad? What makes you sad? What breaks your heart? Those are the things that we should be talking about. Because the things that break your heart for a reason, because you were created to do something about that problem. And we believe that the calling on your heart, that you feel to share a story or share a message, or the calling that your field feels to share a story is the result of a signal that's being sent out by somebody else who needs them or who needs you. And that person needs you actually way more than you need them. And the only reason we wouldn't answer that is because of fear. We're scared it won't work. We're scared it's going to be disruptive. We're scared people are going to say weird things about us. We're scared. But the thing that we have found to be true is there is no fear when the mission to serve becomes clear. When we stay focused on service, we cannot lose, because when you're selling, there are wins and losses. But when you are serving, there are only wins.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. And don't forget to register for our upcoming spring events at dsnevents.com. Secure your spot now. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.